Hi and welcome to CVX 2021. I'm Julien Weissenberg, I'm an AI expert, and today we'll talk about emotional AIs. AIs are made of silicon and metal. They have no hearts, no eyes, but they can see, and the question is, can they see through us and touch our souls? AIs learn through trial and error and from example. At the heart of AI is optimization, and that doesn't quite sound like human work. So here, for example, is a genetic algorithm that learns how to walk. It's purely based on optimization of the distance that it can go. But machines can learn to imagine new things they have never seen before, like new faces. So a question for you is, which of these faces are real or fake? I'll give you a few seconds to have a look, and then you can decide for yourself which you think are real or fake. And I'll give you the answer there. In fact, they're all fake, even though they show quite some emotions on some of them. Here is the way that it works. The AI learns to combine different pictures, and it can recreate new faces it has never seen before. And whether you believe that it's the machines which are creating the emotions or the humans who design it, machines have the power to move us. So we look at machines that can read our emotions and generate emotional content. So the first step is, of course, to read humans. And to build an emotional AI, we first need to teach the AI how to read our emotions. So, of course, face detections and emotion detection has been around for some time. The principle is that it looks at the contour of our faces, the position of our face features like our eyes. Here is an example of a tool that looks at a beauty score. So just to do a little check, we can see here that it's really working well. And also something that I've learned using this tool is how if you change your expression, the score will change as well. So it seems like this face is more attractive than that one. Also, another thing that AIs can analyze is our body posture and movement. Okay. And next, the machine needs to be able to understand the sentiment of what is being said. So, for example, if you look here at reviews, you would maybe want to automatically categorize what people think of the given product. And here is just a demo of a tool where you can write a sentence, and then it will give you an opinion on the sentiment. So for example, here I've written, I'm thrilled by the session at CBX. And it tells me that it's 84.6% positive. Okay, of course, this is maybe a little bit limiting because it's just a cursor. But I find this work very interesting because here it looks at what is being shown. And it's also quite impressive given the different artistic styles that it's able to handle. And also it's able to handle more abstract kind of figures, like this one about disgust. Okay, sometimes it's a little bit approximative. So for example, if you look at the caption of the picture on the left, it says that the man in the middle looks like he's in pain, and I think he's a bit more than in pain. You can do the same type of analysis on voice.
This is no normal car.
Okay.
It has some embedded crazy emotion technology. Come and check it out.
Hey guys, want to see something cool?
Yeah.
So they have these 4 categories, and when the AI feel that people are happy, it will indicate it here.
What should we get for dinner?
I don't know, what do you guys think?
And then you could plot the output of this type of tool on the timeline and show the emotion that the speakers are feeling. So how does this work? It works mostly through machine learning, and I won't get into much details, but here is the definition that I was taught, and here is my simpler definition. So machine learning discovers structures by looking at examples of the data that it's given, and the more data you give it, the better it gets. So for instance, the more examples of handwriting of numbers you will give it, the more accurate the result will be. This is one of the first data sets that was used for the post for sorting letters. Okay. And why does this work? Because the world has some structure. We can use language to describe the world that we live in. And for some reason, if you look at a very large scale or at a smaller scale, the universe has some kind of structure. And why is that the case? This is something that I cannot really answer. But of course, it would be interesting to go down that route as well. Now we'll look at a second aspect. Once we understand emotions, we've seen examples of how we can get a feeling for what emotions people have using an AI. And the question now is, can AIs also create feelings? So let's start with the content. Here is an AI based on a tool called GPT-3, which generates quotes. So I typed in love, and it said, the love is in us, we have to project it. Okay, of course, it's very subjective what you feel about this sentence, but to me, it has some depth. So I think this is quite interesting that a pure machine can generate content like this. This is what it says about AI, that we won't see it coming, and that powerful tools like AI and adaptive algorithms have a way of creeping into our lives. Maybe this is a little scary. But sometimes it also doesn't give you the best piece of advice. I typed in happiness, and it says smile at strangers, even they can scare you. So I don't know what exactly this means, but I don't think it's something to follow. So now we have the text. Let's add a face. We've seen before that one could generate faces, and this AI called Deep Nostalgia takes a picture of a face and animates it, which again gives a bit more depth. And finally, let's add speech to it.
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
So that AI
How many
will
pickled
generate
peppers did Peter Piper pick?
a synthetic AI
He said both
voice.
China and Ukraine should look into Mr. Biden, the Democratic presidential frontrunner, and his son.
Prepare for your death. It is closer than you think. However, the really interesting part is that it'll let you create voiceovers using your own voice.
And if they can in turn respond with voice intonations, content, and even create avatars that can carry emotions, this could be used to facilitate interactions with users. So what does this mean for user experience? Well, first thing is, let's not forget that all this can be combined with other AI technologies, such as recommenders engines. And now I'll just look a little more specifically into voice and why use voice. Voice can improve our users' interactions. We have a special relationship with voice. And one of the first things that I was thinking of when I was thinking of AI and voice is 2001: A Space Odyssey, where the AI that controls a spaceship is primarily interacting with voice. So it doesn't even have a face. Babies recognize their mother's voice in the womb before they're born, or they can even see. An advantage of using voice over other media is to avoid fatigue. And we see that the success of apps like Clubhouse or podcasting, and it shows us that there is demand for services that can be used with voice only. I found that on WhatsApp, you have 65 billion messages sent every day, and you have 2 billion minutes of voice notes. Also, let's not forget that voice works with a phone. About half of the population has access to the internet, so it means another half still doesn't have. And a simple phone is still a very valuable touch point. Through voice, something quite interesting is that we can also understand and communicate through the tone of our voice, unlike with pure text. Also, voice is of great value for visually impaired people, but let's also not forget that there must be alternatives for people who have difficulties to hear. I'd also want to dive a bit into the pitfalls, and we'll look at 3 pitfalls to avoid along your voice journey. The first one is to be aware of AI limitations. So avoid biases with the diversity of accents and biases in the answers that are given. Also respecting data privacy and being able to explain why the AI came up with a certain response. But you have to know that for all these topics, there are tools and approaches that can be very helpful in solving or mitigating these problems. The second thing is that you need to have a carefully planned user journey. The user must recognize that they're talking to a robot, and if the robot is stuck, it should offer the user to speak to a human. Also, it's important to conclude the exchange with a clear summary of the steps that will be taken. And the last thing, which is very important in that context, is the uncanny valley. The uncanny valley is the discomfort that we have when we see a robot that is almost like a human, but not quite. Then we have this impression that it's a bit creepy. And so it's important to make clear that the robot is a robot. So if you have a robot voice that could be mistaken for a human, that's probably not a very good idea, because we don't like to be fooled. And it's also important to have consistency in the presentation of a service. So if the level of intelligence is to be answering questions that are not very complicated, then the appearance should also not be too sophisticated. Otherwise, there will be this discrepancy. To give the best user experience, machines can analyze the tone of our voice, body language and facial expressions, and also, of course, the content of what is being said. We can also learn from previous interactions and get to know which answers are more suitable for a given situation in person. So that message can be delivered by embedding emotions in the response. And last, as we've seen, all this needs to be used very wisely. With that, I wish you a great conference and much success on your voice journey. Thank you.